Good evening, everybody. Welcome to round number 3 of the RWB International British GT season. We're live with GT4 cars, specifically here at Donington. It's quite dark, it's quite chilly as well. It's only 16 degrees ambient temperature and only 20 on track as well. In the evening here as well, we're coming up just past 5 p.m. The race starting at 6 p.m. in-game time. We have a pretty full field here today, 38 cars joining us for the hour and 20-minute race here at Donington Park, and that is the GP loop as well. So the full layout with the sort of awkward left-right chicane. I don't know which one's actually better, the left-right chicane or the right-left chicane. I really wouldn't want to choose either, or if I had to. Nonetheless, they do have to go for the left-right chicane today. Pretty close at the top, though. We'll wait for the standings to flick back around again on your left-hand side. But at the top, I can tell you that the gap between first and second is within 0.3 of a second, as we just see RWB Flack misses breaking point into the final corner there. Couple of tenths of gap then is obviously the gap at the top, but coming from second all the way down to P17, you are covered by 0.8 of a second, and that is excruciatingly close. A little too close, I could say. It's a matter of inches and centimeters here. If you maybe mess up underneath braking, or maybe if you find just that little bit extra under braking, maybe get on the throttle a little bit earlier, if your TCs are wound back too far back or too far forwards, it's going to cost you those little hundredths and tenths of a second. That's going to cost you anything from anywhere from P2 really down to the midfield. And we've still got 10 minutes left of this 30-minute qualifying session, so we're 2/3 of the way here. Some people are still just setting their bank laps. Charger and Burley down in 36th and 37th respectively, still a little ways off the pace, but I think those are just bank laps. Maybe they joined the server a little late and they're still getting two grips with the Donington track here. Obviously those headlights are on. It is pretty dark and it's also extremely cloudy around here. Obviously that brings down those track temperatures, which are ideal. Thankfully the track is optimum. There was reports of rain earlier in the practice session that we just had, just before the live stream. It started from a bit of a damp track and it progressed through damp to greasy through to a faster. And now we're finally at the optimum stage, but rain is in the end. Well, there's a 50-50 chance really if we do get rain for the race, and an hour and 20, sorry. It's a long time for rain to roll in, so it could be a half and half. We may get rain at the start, we may get rain at the end, we may get no rain at all. Who knows? We'll soon see. 8 minutes left to go in qualifying. Top of the standings at the moment is the number 61 car of Camaletto on a 34.4. Again, maintaining that 0.3 gap to Madley, and then D Barnett follows the Porsches second and third. Good amount of love for those Porsches here, along with the Audis, two strong duos. We do have a couple of oddballs in the mix here, the Ginettas, and also there's an Alpine down the bottom of the field. The 114 car running on the Alpine, so good to see some good variety here tonight. Good mix of talent and car varieties as well, so there's going to be fighting up and down the field no matter where you see. 38 cars join us tonight, so we're still getting a few more coming in. I think we've just added another McLaren. The number 8 car has just joined us, so we're still getting a few more here in the dying stages, which is good to see. And for an hour and 20, everyone's going to be fighting over position. If we're coming into the last 7.5 minutes of qualifying now, look at that track map on your right-hand side. It is completely filled with cars. This is more than there is in real life. You have a look at British GT. They get about 30-odd cars, and that's GT3 and GT4. There is a huge amount of cars here. Thankfully, they are of the GT4 variety. If you had 40 GT3 cars around this track, it would be, quite frankly, chaotic. However, they are GT4 cars. A little bit slower, a little easier to be tamed. I say that being tamed. Miko Sky there going a little bit wide out of turn 1, kicking up his left rear into the dirt, and around he went. Almost did well to save that, actually returning back to pit road. We have a look at Justin Madley, who's second at the moment in qualifying, coming through the final chicane, the first and only chicane, actually, so I'm not quite sure why I said final, because there is only one of those chicanes coming into the hairpin now. Tricky braking zone this as you're going downhill, and actually moves offline. That's the Aston behind themselves, bailing out of that lap this time around. Gaps, though, starting to close, especially in that midfield. It is extremely tight in the midfield. P16 all the way down to P29 are covered within a second, 13 places within 1 second. So it just shows how if you can find a 10th here, maybe just 1/10 in one corner, and maintain that without losing it throughout the rest of the race or the rest of the lap, you're going to be gaining 2-3 positions. That is going to boost you, and that could take you from the midfield to, you know, the top sharper end of the field. You do not want to be in the midfield going into the final hairpin at all. It will be, not to say tragic, but the concertina effect is really not going to be your friend. You want to be as far ahead of everyone else as possible. Either that or be right at the back and hopefully try and get your way through cleanly. Hopefully there won't be any forms of contact anyway in the opening laps or even in the entirety of the race, but you can never predict that, as we're here with Kevin Shepherd going through the chicane. Currently in P34, the number 9 BMWs. He breaks down the hill into the penultimate hairpin. That is 2.6 seconds off the pace, and really 2.6 seconds off to cover 34 cars. Real life racing would die for this closeness. It is excruciatingly close here, and again, if he just gains half a second, that elevates him all the way up to P28 or so, as there's a Camaro there, very brightly liveried Camaro there off to the side with a bit of a busted bonnet, and he goes to P32 there, so a couple of places improved here with RWB FX, and then the Martini liveried BMW, a strong choice for GT4's. They're a pretty safe bet, to be honest. Those and the Porsches you expect to be pretty quick wherever you go, along with the Mercedes and the McLarens as well. Pretty safe bets. Obviously, these cars really quite easy to control comparison to their GT3 bigger brothers. They're obviously less horsepower, but then less downforce. There's a couple of corners in certain tracks, predominantly Zolder, where you become very much aero limited, and for a corner that's completely flat in the GT3, you struggle to do. 130R also being one as well, you struggle to do in the GT4. Even though you're going much slower than those GT3s, you don't have the aero or the mechanical grip, much smaller and thinner tires as well. You really struggle out there, so they come with their own set of challenges. Obviously really marketed as the amateur driver's car, that's saying. Plenty of amateurs race in LMP2 and GTE, so amateur is really at that amateur or the business person, which is what they really are, is at their discretion. So these really, they may be easy to drive and easy to learn, but to master them, to really get those extra temps, those crucial temps out of the car, maybe even hundreds over your competitors, that's where the top level guys really come in. RWB, I think, competing in outlap then possibly in the dying stages of this race. Still at the top of the field, the gap is just under 3 tenths of a second. Still, you see at the top of your timing standings on your timing tower at the top left, within 3 tenths. That gap is yet to change. Philip Varley going to the inside of Merva McLaren, who gets a bit of a half spin on that green and yellow accented car in the background, bit of a half spin. Hopefully I didn't compromise the number 55 too greatly as we go into the final hairpin. Now this one also quite tricky. You can't see the exit of this corner. You're waiting for a very long time. Very hard to see in an LMP3 car. That I have experience of, and that is pretty tragic to be said. Thankfully, windscreen's quite wide here, from P15 up to P10 then. 2.5 temps improvement, 5 positions gained. Again, these positions really close here. DOR in P4 at the moment, just within 4 tenths of a second. Also coming into the final hairpin now. Neatly does it. Goes a little bit wide though, out and misses the second part of the hairpin. It's really a dual apex corner here, or you just go for the final apex and get a good launch out there. Was neatly in originally, just missed out on the second part of the hairpin and was only a tenth off on his best lap. So that really showed that he was probably very much a good couple of attempts up on his personal best throughout the rest of the lap, and just unfortunately threw it all the way into the final corner here with RWB Rigel then P9 within or just outside 7/10 of a second. God, these gaps are really close here at Donington. Relatively short track is Donington compared to the likes of Silverstone or Snetterton. So the gaps will be relatively close here, thankfully, and not a huge amount of braking zones. We have turn 1, and then up through out of the crane of curves. It's a little bit of a braking zone, a bit more of a flick right. You go up the hill. The right-hander there is not too much of a braking event, and then the final right-hander that puts you onto the main back straight. Pretty nondescript. Obviously, you have to brake a little bit for the chicane, and the two main braking zones come at the final part of the track, the first hairpin and then the second and last hairpin. Will also disregard the right hander at the bottom of the crane, the curves, which is called the old hairpin. Obviously is no longer a hairpin. 46 seconds left in the session. This will be our pole sitter's last lap and last chance of trying to edge the gap out a little bit further over his competitors. Can he do so? Neatly out the final corner, uses the slipstream, just a little bit of that BMW out ahead of him, comes across the line and does not improve, just a tenth off his fastest lap there. So even that would have been good enough for pole anyway. If you have a look at Taz, then comes across the line, P36 at the moment, and does improve. Don't think in position, no. Does improve in time, but unfortunately not in position. We scroll back to Justin Maisley then, P2 at the moment. Our nearest challengers, P3, P4, P7, all in the pits. They are not improving this time around. That leaves it up to P2, P5, and P6, really the closest challengers, and really the only ones who probably will be able to challenge for pole position here. Through the final corner goes the 76 Porsche, neatly out on the throttle, dives to the shortest line, to the line. Can he break it? Goes quick and just within a tenth there. That's excruciatingly close then. Doing well to reach that 3/10 gap, and he's within a couple of, within half a car length, if that, of the leader, within 72 thousandths of a second. Extremely close margins here. So we're waiting on the last few to come across the line here. RWB Charger, company P37, just 4 seconds off the pace at the moment. Comes into the final corner. Hopefully he can improve a little bit in time. There's a 9/10 gap between himself and Taz, the number 5 Porsche. So whether or not he can close that gap or even overtake P36 and close the gap by a couple of attempts, unfortunately not enough to take P36 away from that Porsche up ahead of him. I think we still have one more left on track. No, we don't. That is the 360 car, which has finished their qualifying. So we'll wait for the session to end here and progress us into the race proper. Still waiting on number 19, who's apparently out on track, but has seen the checkered. Indeed, they have. That was Kevin Shepherd. Got himself into P33 then, has actually seen the checkered. And there we go. That is qualifying over. So the 61 car leads the 76 car, and that's barely indeed. Menley then just very close in the end to grabbing or snatching pole away from the 61, who held it for the majority, if not the entirety, of qualifying. They nearly had that stolen away from him. The number 15 Porsche follows 917. Your top 4 there, followed by the 360 S Kruger car, as we wait for the end of qualifying. What's interesting to note is Jack Camalesso, our pole man, is also the championship leader on 162 points, just 5 points ahead of our 4th place man, DOR, and then Rick Binnersley, who is in P12, 3rd place in the championship and P12 in qualifying. That's really not what they had in mind at all. That's going to really set them back, as we have 5 minutes now for drivers to make their setup changes from qualifying to the race. Obviously, it's an hour and 80 minutes here. It's a little over just the normal standard endurance of 1 hour. So it's really going to test their consistency tonight. We also have a mandatory pit stop as designated by the little golden one next to their driver number. That will turn and will go away and turn to a little green blob once their pit stop has been completed. The only special ruling for that is that you have to take fuel. Tires are optional. As long as you take some fuel at your pit stop, you're okay. These cars can normally go about an hour and 15, hour and 20 at most tracks anyway, so it will likely be just a splash and dash for these cars here, unless they get into some form of accident throughout the way. They may choose to opt in for tires or not, but likely we won't be seeing tires taken for this one. So run through the grid then. Jack Camaletto then P1, followed by Justin Mensley, then followed by Barnett in the second of those Porsches. Next follows a BMW of DOR, and then the 360 car of Kruger, your top 5 today. Following on from that is Plate in the 71 Audi, and then Banks in the number 17 car, the first of the Aston Martins. I take that back. It's actually Camaletto in P1, who's also in an Aston. I didn't actually clock that. Varley in P8, the number 55 McLaren, and our four front running McLaren. P9 goes to the 747 of Emil in the GOAT Racing team. I love that name. P10, the 72 BMW. A lot of loving for those BMWs here tonight. P11, ruling the 33 car. You saw that BMW just raise it, so I'll come off the tracks. They have set up for the race and they're happy to go. P12, Binnersley, third place in the championship in the 888 car. Not a good showing for them. Well, not the best is showing in the top third of qualifying, but they could be better compared to their championship rivals. We are only on the third round of the season, but every little helps. Every point matters. P13, Crew, the number 99 Aston Martin, followed by Badwalski, the number 30 Mercedes. D. Wilk in the 21 Aston Martin sits himself 15th place. Schaefer in the Ginetta. One of two Ginettas. I really love to see some Ginetta love around here. It's a car that really gets bullied and hated on a lot in the community, both real life and in sim, but good to see some variety and some love for the Ginettas here. P17 goes to Merchant in the 88 car, followed by Barrowclough in the 24 BMW. Nice livery on that one, actually. P19 and 2A Camaro. It's a car also you don't often see chosen. Always at the bottom of the pack, those in terms of selection. The 97 P20, Pinpoint in the AMG Petronas 46 car. Moy in the 67 sits in 21st place, and that's Moll, actually, not Moy. My apologies. Simcox in the 25 car sits 22nd, followed by Anderson in the 666 car. Further down the field now, then, Eugenie in the 68 Camaros, so 2 Camaros, actually 3 Camaros, as well as 3 Ginettas in this race. We've got a minute to go. I'll get through this as quickly as I can. Barras in 25th, followed by M. Bull in the 84, Al in the second of the Ginettas, then followed by the one and only Alpine. That's real cool to see then. Gretschel in the 114 Alpine, Lenz in the number 7 Camaro, followed by FX UK in the 52 BMW 409 Audi with Mr. Audi, RWB Audi, and then Audi like you would see. Sky in the number 1 Mercedes heavyweight, carrying that number 1 with him. Shepard, the number 19 BMW, sits himself in 33rd place, just ahead of R. Flacken, number 9 Ginetta, the last of those Ginettas. Tarbuk in the number 11 BMW, followed by R. Taz, who we saw just get that 36th position away from R. Charger, who sits in 37th. 38th and the penultimate grid slot goes to RWB Koss, and rounding out the grid is Justin Berlin, also in an Alpine, so 2 Alpines then. Both of them, unfortunately, towards the tail end of the grid as the formation lap gets underway, and we'll scoot our way back to the front of the field in anticipation of the starting grid then, as we watch these cars come through the Melbourne Loop, the penultimate hairpin. So get ready for an hour and 20 minutes of racing here. You look in the weather in the top right. The next 30 minutes are destined to be sunny, but with a bit of cloud, and whether or not that cloud could envelop and turn that into rain in the next hour and 20 is yet to be seen. They line up single, or in their double files like Noah's Ark. You see them coming around, filing around at the back, and we're going to sit ready for the green lights as they get closer and closer. And green lights, the green lights are out as they file their way down into turn 1. So clean start for our pole sitter then, the 61 car getting away nice and neatly, as does the top 5 or so as it's side by side. And they continue with the Noah's Ark theme going down through turn 1s, turn 3, 2, 3, 4, and 5 as we go plummeting down the hill now. Eugene looking to the outside of the Camaro. On his inside, he'll turn into the inside as we go through the old hairpin. It does as they go side by side. The Camaro just holding on in front of that Aston. Does well to hold on to there. Coming up the hill is Philip Varley under pressure from the Mercedes behind him. That 333 car wanting through. They actually had switched places just beforehand in the opening lap. And Kevin Shepherd just a little further down the pack. Is still 2x2 at the back here. Is not yet settled down at all, trying to get to the inside of the Aston Martin ahead of him, and does so. Gets that neatly done. We'll wait for the timing on the left-hand side to figure itself out. Obviously, in the opening laps, that does take a little while for itself to get sorted out and figure out what's going on. Down the inside goes Charlie. Wasn't having any of that from the BMW. Holds on to P34 for the time being as they file down into the hairpin, and coming out of that is Marco Badwalski trying to go down the inside of the Ginetta to his right-hand side. We'll have the inside line for the final corner. That's a done deal for him indeed. On the back of the BMW behind him, that is still our third place in the championship driver in the 888 BMW. That's Binnersley, third place in the championship, and still in P12 then hasn't been able to create any places for himself in the opening lap. RWB FX coming into turn 1 under pressure slightly from the Aston Martin behind him. In fact, I think that Aston Martin was defending from the BMW behind him. Someone kicking up a little bit of dust in front of him as they plummet back down the hill for the second time, second of many times indeed this race. The camera catches up with Daniel Merchant, and then 88 car in 18th place in the slipstream of the Camaro up ahead of him. Looks to the inside, and in fact the Camaro running a bit of a wide line, alternate line through the top of the hill then. And then Gianni Lenz defending his ways, falling a little bit behind Bull in the 84 Aston Martin. You see him just through the back of shot then pulling a bit of a gap, that gap 0.8 of a second or so, and he's going to come susceptible to some slipstreaming then. Not the greatest of opportunities for slipstreaming around here. The straights here aren't particularly long as opposed to Silverstone or Snetterton or even Alton Park. Those straight lines are a bit longer in comparison to Donington, so slipstream is going to be a little bit difficult around here. However, it's still beneficial. A Mano MO plate then looking to take P4 away from the 360 car up ahead. The top two then have broken away. Our leader, Kameto, following the number 15 Porsche as they break away. In the midfield though, P22, 23, 24 and 25 all squabbling over position here. Things not yet settled down as they too start their second lap of the race. To the inside goes the 666 car. Couldn't make that out there. I don't think he managed to get the position. No, he didn't. No, they still go side by side then. The 84 side by side with the 409 Audi then. Mr. Audi in an Audi coming down the inside as we wait for that graphic to update, and he gets that position done down into the old hairpin, the 84, losing out to the 409 car who's made up a good 6 or 7 positions in the opening laps. So it's really opportunistic by the Audi R8 to launch himself up the field. Under pressure is this 747. It's not a Boeing, it is a BMW. Easily mistaken, they're both large vehicles indeed. Under pressure from the double three ruling car, the Mercedes of ruling, to go into the penultimate hairpin now. Not close enough for a move into the hairpin this time, I don't think. No, he's not. Closes under braking though. It's a neat line. Also won't be close enough, I don't think, for a challenge into the final hairpin this time around. Two gaps starting to open up, but things are very procedural at the moment. People waiting for others to make a mistake. We're only 5 minutes into this race. At the end of this minute, the pit window will open for 70 minutes and will close when there's 5 minutes to go. So real open strategy. And there you go, that pit window is open for the next 1 hour and 10 minutes. So it's really up to you on who wants to be, on when you want to be making your pit stop. Very open-ended, so it's not restricted. It gives people lots of freedom and lots of choice to make their stop when they want to. Coming down the crane, the curves, Dave Crew under pressure from the Camaro behind him. He just got past the newcomer in the 97 there and runs a bit wide then coming out of the old hairpin, and that may cost him a spot then. I think he's just been able to hold on to it for now. MO Plate then still putting pressure on the Audi up ahead of them, although equally under pressure by the Aston Martin number 17 car behind him. Banks trying to put pressure on Plate, and then Crew up ahead of them, side by side into the chicane, and Dave Crew to the inside of the Camaro. Was definitely called out by running a bit wide out the old hairpin and loses the position then to the Camaro. Will he lose one to the Mercedes here as well? We'll have to stay on board with them coming into the hairpin. That Mercedes looking to make a move on the Aston Martin, but the BMW's saying, hello, I want a piece of this one, goes to the outside into the hairpin. It's going to have to run the long line all the way around. It may get eaten up by that Porsche. There's a bit of dust thrown up in the background there. The number 21 car, unfortunately, might have had a bit of an issue at the start of this race. Is much further down the field, languishing on their own, unfortunately. But if these guys here keep on battling the way they are, they'll be catching up in no time. The Demon Tweaks 888 car up into P10. Third in the championship is Rick Binnersley, finally making some moves here to catch up and regain some championship position points here. Points he'll be losing to his championship rivals. Those are the leader right now, Jack Camaletto, in P1, and DOR, who is in P7 at the moment. DOR falling down the order from their P4 starting position. See our leader here, the Scotsman in the Academy Motorsport 61 car, having just under a second lead, so hasn't been able to pull out a lead, or a comfortable lead at all. However, it is pretty comfortable between P2 and P3. They have an entire chicane of breathing room. The gap 4 seconds between P2 and P3. Side by side through the chicane is Varley, and I think that's DOR. No, that's a 72. So that is Rigel then, P8 and P9. They continue being side by side, and hello, here comes the Demon Tweaks BMW, wanting a bit of an action of this one. Tries to go around the outside of the 72. 72 saying, not this time, sunshine, but I don't think it's over yet. And the 888 hounds are filed just in behind in the background there. Bazwalski going to the inside of the Ginetta. Gives them racing room, and those two are going to go side by side into turn one. The 27 Ginetta, and that Mercedes around the outside goes Matt Tarbuck. Can't get it done there. Becomes susceptible to an attack from the Aston Martin behind him. Let's see as they go into turn one now. All of which are getting slipstream, so no one's really getting an advantage over another here. They all equally have slipstream. Helping him out here is Martin Schaefer in the lime green Ginetta. That is very vibrant, and you're not missing that in a heartbeat whatsoever. Varley under pressure from the 72 BMW, has been under pressure for a little while now, and these two fighting has brought up the 888 and the 27 up to fighting contention. I think the 27 also bringing the number 30s. There's someone off in the background there. That's the 71. That's MO Plate then, who hopefully will rejoin safely. They were P5 before having an accident, running a bit wide through the right hand, and they've dropped from P5 all the way down to P14. That's really not ideal for them whatsoever. And I'm sure, well, they've got an hour and 10 minutes. We're only 10 minutes into this race. Someone skips or bypasses the chicane entirely there as well. That won't be ideal for them. Again, only 10 minutes into this race. We still have another 70 minutes of racing here. Plenty of time for you to gain up time, for you to make mistakes and also for your competitors to make mistakes themselves. We'll see how this all plays out in the next hour and 10 minutes. Varley under pressure then from the BMW. Continual pressure from the 72 BMW, but still trying to put that gap ahead of it. And, well, maybe if he can force the 72 back into the 888 car, he maybe get a bit of breathing room. But the 72's got a much better run and will go down the inside, try to make a move down the inside that the crane the curves won't have it there. Will have to be on the outside and tries to stick it all the way around the outside. I think he runs a couple of wheels in the dirt there. Does the 72 car. We wait for the camera to catch up, and indeed he did run a couple of wheels in the dirt there. That drops him from P8 all the way down to P9 and may even be P10. The Janetta will have the inside. Doesn't take the opportunity to get past the 72 this time. 2 places lost for RWB Regal. A very simple but very costly error there. Still under pressure, that Janetta hampered in the straight line massively. If you go to a place like Paul Ricard's, that car will top out much sooner in its rev range than any of the other cars. He's slow in the straight line. Is that Janetta? A bit of a left field choice indeed. Battle for third position is raging on then. Madeley holding off Kruger, Banks and DOR. And they've slipped away from the leading 2 then, has the 76 and the rest of the pack. And was that the 76 going wide then? Possibly. I think someone may have exited stage right then. No, I think that was someone else's dust trails I saw there going wide. 76 holds on to P3 at the moment. Regal still trying to maintain, well, actually losing more ground here then, down to P12, but the Janetta is behind him. We saw that Janetta get past and is now behind a Mercedes and a Camaro. So something's obviously happened between the BMW and the Janetta, which we've just missed half a lap ago. But the contact between the two, most likely, there's someone in the pits that's MO Plate then, who was up in P5, obviously had that incident at the top of the course then, making their one and only mandatory stuff, and we'll be getting that over and done with pretty early on then. The battle for P3 though, still raging on. 5.5 seconds to gap between P2 and P3, so you see how much time you lose when fighting one amongst each other. And that gap now eking out to 6 seconds, so the front 2 pushing out and trying to put a gap early on. Whether or not they'll be churning up their tyres a little more aggressively than the rest of the field will be yet to be seen. If this is a pace they are comfortable running with, then they'll be able to hold this for a very long time and will comfortably maybe even be able to get a good pit margin over the others. Obviously, it takes about 45 seconds to make a pit stop here, so if they can find a way where they don't end out slap bang in the midfield, then they'll keep on going for as long as they can. Matt Tarbuck in the number 11 car, sitting nicely in P24 then, under pressure from the Camaro behind him, who has to jink out of the way. I think the Camaro going a little bit deeper on the brakes than that BMW and almost slammed into the back of it. Doing a good job to avoid that collision then. Under pressure though is that number 11 car. As we jump to the 888 car, Binnersley up to P7. This is a much better showing from P12 up to P7 then, putting the pressure on Varley, who's been holding off pressure from all manners of people for the first 15 minutes of this race. DOR catching back up to the podium fight then. There's Madley's then I think dropped away, and maybe I've been reading that timing board wrong then. It's actually the leader who was pretty much checked out then, not with Madley. I think he's actually had a possible incident and dropped him all the way back to the clutches of 3rd, 4th and 5th then. Dan Anderson going well there in 23rd, I think I saw there. But yeah, but Madley, I think, dropped back, and yeah, that says 3rd on his bottom right counter, so I think he made a mistake and dropped briefly down to P3, managing to hold on to P2 for now. That's allowed Daniel Barnett to walk away with this one for now. As we look into the chasing pack then, battling over 2nd position, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th here. These guys fighting will really eke out the gap as there's a exit of the pits down your right hand side. Hopefully no collections there, but we're definitely going to be seeing some interesting tactics throughout this race. With the pit window open and open for the next hour, we're going to be seeing a variety of different strategies here. There are 38 cars out on track. 39 actually, as I just rechecked my standings. There are 38 out on track. When their choice to make their pit is obviously entirely up to them, but when they do, is going to be extremely vital. What I think is a good choice by the car that we saw off in 5th place. I've forgotten their surname, which is really not ideal. So I look for them on my pit screen window, and actually the reason why we have something going on different at the top is because Jack Camaletto, our leader, has made their pit stop. They are down the order, and they've been and made their pit stop. They've just come out to crane the curves and going up the hill then underneath the old bridge. So they've made their pit stop, hence why we've had a change of the guard at the moment. So a lot of people opting to make their pit stops early on and just get themselves up into clean fresh air. You see the 21, the number 4, and the number 36 on your track map, all of them at the top side of the track map. They're all in clean air. They all have a lot of track space, and if they can start doing some sort of qualifying time trial runs and just go as quick as they can, they're going to gain so much time. Look at that battle pack in the midfield coming out the final hairpin and the penultimate hairpin. There are so many people so close together that if you can run in clean air, then this can be really beneficial for you, especially for Barnett up in the lead right now. Number 15, he's got an 8-second lead over everyone else. It can be real beneficial if they can just use that clean air and push away Matt Tarbuck, as there's a Camaro goes slightly wide and does well to hold the slides they had coming out of turn 1. Got a good 30-40 degree angle on that slide, did well to regain composure there. Lost them a bit of time though to Anson up ahead and goes wide through the old hairpin. Another couple of wheels on the dirt, then that's going to lose them a place to Audi then in the 409 Audi. Indeed, the Audi's, I've said Audi too many times in a sentence, that's going to confuse me very quickly. The Audi goes around the outside of the Camaro and drops himself down to P24 then. Not exactly ideal for themselves. So yeah, Plates and once leader Jack Camaletto both made their pit stops. But what's interesting is that I believe that Camaletto has come out behind Mo Plate. Indeed, they have Mo Plate in P30 and our once leader in P37. So for the net lead, it's actually Mo Plate who's in the lead in the number 71 car, which you cannot see on your track map because they are in amongst the battles around them. Coming down the hill, the battle for second place are raging on. Justin madly holding onto position from Banks in the number 17 Aston Martin. Aston Martin getting a good run out of the old hairpin and draws alongside and to the outside. They'll have the inside line for the right-handers to come up the hill, sends it to the outside, and there's contact between the two. Bit of a half spin for the number 17, manages to regain control of the car. A little bit of a half spin there just by diving down the inside. The number 76 holds on to position for the time being. In the pits is Jack Camaletto. Possible retirement. If they're yet to come out of the pits, this could be a retirement for them. Indeed, it might be, along with RWB Taz as well. So not quite sure what's happened to them, but they've been in the pits for quite some time then. You see in P29 is Mo Plate, the forerunner of those who have made their pit stop, along with Al Wilk, Gretschel, and R. Cos, who's making their pit stop at the moment. Those guys making their pit stops and getting it over and done with as early as they can. Yeah, interesting to see where Mo Plate will file out after everyone else has made their pit stops. Here with Philip Varley in the McLaren has now been overtaken by Binnersley in the 888 Demon Tweaks BMW, and still has a train behind him. It's a bit like Timo Glock here, but the GT4 variant been doing a great job at keeping those guys behind him, and only recently letting the Triple Eight BMW in front. And we have a beautifully liveried Alpine here, taking highlights from the F1 team and the newly recently announced Alpine LMP1 team, same color scheme, and that really fits quite well on the GT4 car. That is actually stunningly beautiful. Like, that might be the best looking car on the grid, to be honest. But Zawalski trying to get past Varley for what seems to be the 8th or 10th or 12th time here. Has actually dropped back a little bit from that 55 McLaren. Could be coming under pressure from the bright yellow BMW. People not afraid to have a bit of color here, a bit of expression, which is good to see. Normally we see the dulcet tones of blues, greens, blacks, reds, but a little bit of color, and it's good to see. We also saw that on that bright lime green Ginetta earlier on. Beautiful colors here, and it's really nice to see. The 30 having to defend from the 747 BMW behind, then unable to continue their pressure on the 55 like they were doing just a moment ago. They won't be too happy with that one at all. As we look further down the field, RWB Flak then currently in P26 under pressure from the number 19 Porsche. So Porsche dives to the inside, will have the inside line for the chicane. The Ginetta has to slot in behind. There's no way you can make that side by side in the chicane here. As Flak loses out to the Porsche and could be coming under pressure from the Audi and Aston Martin behind him. As the train singles out once again. This train headed by Kay Shepherd, the number 19 sort of dark brown coloured BMW. Our leader, though, still Daniel Barnett in the number 15 Porsches. Put a couple of laps on some guys there, the Alpine and the number 61 car. I think those two have just made their pit stops, hence they would be a lap down. That will obviously equal out after the pit stop phase has run a little bit deep then into the chicane. Did our leader, Daniel Merchant, P25 at the moment, the AC8 car still heading this train. The number 19 car able to break away is the 27 car. Schaefer's made their pit stop along with FX UK and the 52 BMW also making their pit stops. We'll see where they come out in relation to Jack, who's actually now out on track again, but still has a mandatory pit to do, even though we saw them in the pits earlier. So possible technical difficulties for them whilst making their pit stops. So that's really not ideal for our championship leader whatsoever. If they're having difficulties in the pits, not able to complete a valid mandatory stop, then you see they're at the bottom of the timing sheets at the moment, bar two people, Taz and Koz, who may possibly be retirements in this race. Schaefer then coming out, and here is Mo Plate, who is still at the front of those who have made their pit stops relative to the leader at the moment. Still our leader Daniel Barnett. Whether or not they will come out ahead or behind of them is yet to be seen. Obviously Barnett running with quite a clear gap at the moment, a good 10 or so seconds of free air timers. Rugal comes into the pits with or comes out the pits with, has a bit of a broken front end there, a bit of a broken bonnet, so a little bit of contact between them and someone else at some point. A little bit damage. You see the scuff marks on the front spoiler coming out, and there's an equally broken Aston Martin in the background there. The Golf liveried Aston's, I'm not quite sure what number that is. As we wait for the timings to update, there we go. It's the number 99 slots in between these two Astons and a bit of a sandwich. And there's also Charger, actually Bull up ahead, who's also in an Aston Martin. So Aston Martin's left, right, and centre for this BMW here. Just coming out of the pits then. These guys he's trying to get past will be slightly slower pace. Obviously, Regal's been able to make an entire pit stop and still get out ahead of a couple of people. So those two drivers shouldn't be too hard for him to get past. Our leader, 10 seconds the gap between himself and P2. 55 minutes left to go. We've been racing for 25 minutes here, and he's been able to create a gap of 10 seconds, which is quite impressive indeed. Whether that's, well, certainly been aided by our leader having some troubles in the pit stops and has ended up down in 37th position. Really not ideal for him. So you look further down the field as Eugenie makes their pit stop from 18th place, drops down to P19, will drop a fair few more places as they make their pit stop. Interesting to see where they come out with MO Plate then, the number 71 car. But I think they're already across, so we know that that Plate should have the jump on the, well, all the way up to P10 or so, at least, judged by how much time that Eugenie spent in the pits and how far he's come out in relation to Plate. So interesting. Well, I'm going to be very excited to see where Plate comes out in all of this as the timings update. And they do get a little bit confused, unfortunately, in ACC when people make pit stops, especially on formation laps and things like that. They get a little bit confused because it just said MO Plate had overtaken the BMW, but MO Plate is very much almost in the final sector. So you can see it does get a little bit confused, but Plate here in the 71, trying to get past the Merchant in the 81 Porsche here. Neatly they go through and onto the back straight. Coming into the penultimate hairpin is the 67 Burger King liveried Porsche. Goes down the inside of the Alpine, the 36 there. That Alpine is a lap down that car. They get out of the way neatly. Burger King car holding on to a bit of a gap over the 25 BMW, that Simcox in the background you saw diving on the brakes there, getting past the Alpine along to that number 1 Mercedes then. And so the yellow flag in the penultimate hairpin, I'm not quite sure who that is. They get away going. It's the number 19 car who's had a bit of a spin at the hairpin and continuing to have a bit of a spin and some more spins and finally getting themselves re-going. That's Shepherd, who was sort of P22, P24 area, has dropped down all the way down to P30. That's not ideal for him. Expect them to dive into the pits. I wouldn't be too surprised if they do so. And I'm right, look at that. I'm basically a genie, I've got this. Indeed, Shepherd diving into the pits. It would make sense to do so after a spin. And we'll see where they come out in relation to everyone else. So, once leader, 5 laps down off the lead and yet to make a mandatory pit stop. So it's really gone from bad to worse for our once leader here. Marco Badwalski coming into the penultimate corner under pressure from the 747 BMW. This pack being pretty similar for the majority of the race, if not all of it, with the McLaren out at the head of this group here. The 55 followed by the 30, the 747, and then the 33 car, all been pretty close to each other. The only change that's happened is that 888 car has come from the back of the group to the front of the group, but hasn't really been able to pull out a gap there. As the 11, I thought we were going to go side by side with the Aston Martin, but doesn't this time. The 11 holds off the 666 car as they make their pit stop as well. So a lot of people stopping early. A lot of people have stopped within the first 30 minutes of this race, which is quite surprising. Maybe they just want to get out into clean air. But the field as RWB Audi as well makes their pit stops. So many people have made their pit stops now that the field is extremely spread, that you have a 80% chance or so of coming out into traffic, into dirty air. So if you wanted to make that choice of coming out in clean air, you should have done that much earlier as MO Plate goes around the outside of the Camaro there. That was a fantastic move down the crane, the curves, and almost loses it. It goes a little bit wide through the old hairpin, holds onto it for now, keeps that place settled. Badwalski still under pressure from the 747 BMW for P8 here. Still trying to put pressure on the 55 and the AC8 just up ahead of them. As we're coming up to 50 minutes left of this race. We're half an hour into this one. So just under a third. Maths is interesting. Around about a third done of this race. Of course, the top 18 all yet to do their mandatory pit stops. So we'll wait for those guys and girls to make their pit stops. Badwalski still under pressure then from that BMW as we jump to Jack Camaletto the number 61 car, who, as you can see, there is 4 laps down on everyone else, and it's really been a torrid time for them. Mike Bull, who, oh, this is the Aston Martin, so the 84 trying to get past the 72. That 72 we saw much further up the grid. I think earlier, from 24th goes to 22nd, does that BMW. You see the Alpine in the background make their pit stop. The 72 going to have to hold off a charge from the 84 and the number 9, but probably shouldn't do. The 72 has made their pit stop and is ahead of those who haven't, so obviously has been able to create such a gap that they've made an entire pit stop gap over those, so expect that not to be too much of an issue for Regal and for Plate. Badwarski still under pressure from the 747 car. Jinxed a little bit to the inside just to defend and show that nose then, and keep the BMW at bay as there's a slow BMW off to driver's right hand side. I think letting a few people there. It's the Martini car, I think it's possibly a lap down and pulling off the racing line and letting those faster cars through then. Indeed it is that Martini car just pulling off and letting those guys through. Takes the racing line though for turn 1, as it's entitled to do, but respectively getting out the way where it can, and will probably do so on exit. 97 car, Nate Newcomer in the Chevrolet Camaro, P11 at the moment, under pressure from Pinpoint in the 46 Mercedes and Barrowclough in the 24 BMW as they come down the Craner curves, into the old hairpin. All of them neatly through. That Mercedes in the middle there, running a little bit wide as Miko Sky makes their pit stop from P17. It's already dropped down to P24 whilst that pit stop is occurring. 97 still holding on to 11th place then. So it could be a move in the background there. No, the 24 I thought was going to make a move on the 46, not happening this time around. Look at the alternate line with that BMW, the 3rd place BMW in this pack here, taking those alternate lines over that right-hander. It's got a bit of a crest in the middle of it at the entry to the right-hand. Pretty difficult corner to get right there. That bump pushes you to the very far side of the corner. Makes it pretty difficult indeed. Coming down to the inside, that BMW forced the Mercedes to go defensive then. Wasn't able to make a move this time around. And the positions stay the same for the time being, but expect that to change in the next 47 minutes of this race. So I think that's a lap down Aston, possibly. No, actually no, it's Barras in the 74 car. Another lap down, but these three fighting may bring in that light blue Aston Martin in the background. Might bring them a bit closer to this three-way fight. These guys continue to fight the way they are doing so. The lead still at 10 seconds, the gap between P1 and P2. As we have a look at Daniel Barnett, our current leader at the moment, maintaining that 10-second gap over Banks and DOR. So maintaining a good pace, the top two for sure. DOR within a close proximity to Banks, just 3 seconds the gap between P2 and P3. Kruger then just 5 seconds off the back of P3, but actually under pressure from Madley in the 76 Porsche then. The battle for P4 and 5 here. We'll see how this battle develops in the coming laps then. I think these two have been running nose to tail for a little while now, and the 360 car being able to fend off the 76 Porsche then for the last couple of laps. Gianni Lenz in the number 7 car under pressure from the 72 BMW of R Regal. Regal obviously making their pit stop already, so expect them to have a greater pace, and looks to the inside at the chicane. Gets that move done and dusted very early, has the inside line for the chicane and swoops up ahead. Will that leave the Camaro compromised to the Aston Martin? It may do so as they swing into the penultimate corner now. Aston Martin just not quite close enough this time around to make a move on that very vibrant Camaro there, the number 7. That now releases the 72 car to go catch up to Merchant, and then maybe even Plate in 18th place. Simcox, the latest addition to pit road, pitting from P16. Expect them to come out around P26 or so after those pit stops are done, as they fly down the hill now and into the old hairpin. We have a look at Jerome ruling then in the number 33 Mercedes, trying to put pressure on the 747 car, who's dropped away from Badwowski, which Badwowski will be pleased to hear. And well, Badwowski's already been putting pressure on the 55, but the 33 goes for the, or has a little look for the move into the hairpin there. Sniff my diff. That is, yeah, I'm not going to elaborate any more on that, but I need to. Dan Lee Banks, our second place car, finding his way through traffic at the moment. He's got a lapped Audi up ahead of him. That gap's come down a little bit between himself and P3. It is now sub 3 seconds. Kruger then 6 seconds away from P4. Kruger still under pressure from P5. The gap between those two within a second. The 360 car and the 76 car. Daniel Barnett still our leader. That gap maintaining at 10 seconds, and it has been doing so for the last 15 or so minutes. Really impressive stuff from all the drivers here to maintain, well, especially these front-running two, to maintain such a high pace and such an equal pace whilst both of them are fighting their way through traffic. And of course, they'll be meeting traffic at different points of the lap. So you may be able to get one down the inside of into a hairpin quite happily, but then you may get held up through the old hairpin. You may not be able to get a better run as normal through the old hairpin. So it swings and roundabouts, it comes and goes. It's just the beauty of dealing with lapped traffic. Of course, they're entitled to run their own race as they please, as long as they don't infringe on the leaders, which they don't intend to, but also they don't want to be losing too much time just to move out the way of the leaders, as Mike Build is our latest addition to pit road. MO plate up to P17 then. And closing on Anderson then in the 666 Aston Martin, and Regal as well, closing up a Merchant. So our four runners in the pit stop brigades, those who have made their pit stops compared to those who haven't, both of which are closing in on cars up ahead of them and looking to make overtaking moves probably in the next coming moments. The 72 car spied an opportunity into the chicane, not doing it this time around. See what Plate can do then in 71 Audi, and all sorts of pressure on the 666 Aston Martin within 7/10 of a second now then, so the gap is close. But can the 71 car put pressure on the 666 car to force them into a mistake? Maybe Anderson knows that Plate has made their pit stop. Maybe they don't. If they know that Plate has made their pit stop, then it may be the wise thing just to back off and let them through. Don't lose any more time to the competitors around you, that being Merchant, Lenz, Mole, and Newcomer, 2 places below, 2 places ahead. You don't want to be losing time to them, because they're your fight. Plate and Regal, who's now just got past Merchant, they're not your fight. You need to let them go and understand who you're going to be fighting for position, because you won't be fighting Plate for position, because you need to make a pit stop. And unless Plate has a unfortunate accident at some point, then maybe you will. But it's good to see the bigger picture sometimes when fighting. Obviously, it's ideal, and it's a better feeling to hold on to that position. But if it starts costing you too much time, then really you should start letting it go. Number P12 then, the number 24 car, BMW, trying to put the moves on pinpoint up ahead of him, but actually losing a bit of time through the chicane, and then the hairpin subsequently. The 74 car of Barros closing the gap then onto the back of this BMW then. As in the background, I think Aston Martin trying to get past a Camaro, but I think either one of those is a lap down. Not quite sure which one it is. As Eugenie tries to fend off the Aston Martin behind him. This is a battle for P25. So battles are happening up and down the field right now. It's the beauty of slower classed cars. The slower they are, the closer the racing is. That's why we all love TCR racing, because that is some of the best racing you'll see. The slower the car tends to be, the better the racing. It's funny how that tends to work out. Binnersley up to P6. This has been a pretty good drive up the field for them, obviously qualifying down in P12, but come to P6 and sort of stagnated up there in P6 and held ground. The battle for thirds, though, raging on. I think, actually, no, this is a battle for, well, this is just DOR running on his own. He's got a 5-second gap between him each way, 5 seconds behind Banks and 5 seconds ahead of Krug. And there's a bit of contact then between Binnersley and I think Varley as well, sending Binnersley sliding into the barriers. And McLaren gets away scot-free this time around. And there's going to be some damage to that BMW for sure. Will Binnersley dive to pit road? No, not this time. He lets him to stay out. He won't be too happy with that. I'm not quite sure what happened there. We cut to it just a little too late there, unfortunately, but it looked like possibly Binnersley crept over onto the McLaren's racing line, and they wasn't too happy with what happened. Unfortunately, a bit of contact between the two, but the Triple Eight car getting off relatively lightly, side slamming the barriers there and just bouncing off and carrying on like normal 74 car, then making their pit stop from P15. So we have a look at Emma Plate, who does indeed take that 15th position away from the Aston Martin. And there's still battles going on up and down the field here. So have a look at Kruger then, who's holding on to P4, then the Porsche of Madley right behind him. These two have been inseparable for the majority of the race as well. So we've just gone past the halfway point of the race, 40 minutes down, 40 minutes to go here at Donington, the GP layout. And we're coming into sort of the dusk sunset time. The lights are ablazed on all the cars here, everyone with their headlights out. And we may see a bit of some more darker conditions as both the ambient and track temperature has gone down. The ambient down from 20 to 15 degrees and the track down from 17 down to 16 degrees. So conditions will get cooler, and that will only accelerate and exacerbate as the sun goes down. Once that sun gets real low and you can see the shadows that have been contrasted from that sun, it makes it pretty hard to see as you go down the back straight into the chicane. When that sun dips below that visor line, it becomes very hard to see, and spot your braking point for those corners also into turn 1 is notable as well. Thankfully, the penultimate hairpin, you're going down the hill, so you don't actually hit the visor line as much for the sun rays, because your angles are down at sort of a -5, 10 degree pitch. So a bit of a saving grace then. The number 24 car into the pits from P12. So that now leaves the top 14 left to make their pit stops. As well as P17, 18, 20, and 21 also yet to make their stops. The 747 car trying to put pressure on the 888 car, not being able to do so, coming under pressure from the 33 car, the Sniff My Diff Mercedes. And I don't want to say that anymore because, yeah, that's a beautiful slogan on the back of that Mercedes, the RWB Audi trying to go around the outside of the BMW. Actually, the BMW trying to go down the inside of the Audi and doing so quite well as they go side by side. We'll have the outside for the final corner. Simcox and the 25 BMW will not be able to make that move stick. Indeed, he does not. As the Audi goes all the way to the far side of the track, trying to break that slipstream as early as they can do. Coming through turn 1 now. And holding on to that 26th position then here. Looking at Xavier Eugenie then in P21 at the moment, holding off from P22. That's Wilk in the 21 Aston Martin behind him, that bright red car just behind him. Holding off for the moment in the time being, as there's a trip through the gravel there for the car ahead of him. I think that was the Alpine there. Indeed, it was the 36 car having a run through the gravel there. Probably not exactly what they wanted this late on in the race here. as we're looking at the 747 car, still under pressure from the 33, and still trying to maintain gap to the 888 car down in P8. So I think something's happened between themselves and Varley. Oh yes, of course they did. They made contact. I'm forgetting things that literally happened 5 minutes ago for some odd reason. Nonetheless, down to the penultimate corner go the two BMWs and this Mercedes. And the gap coming down a little bit then for the lead. Down, well, we're within sub 7 seconds now, so 3 seconds has been lost by Barnett at some point during this race. Not quite sure what's happened to him for that to be caused, but 3 seconds has been lost from the lead. That brings it down to 7 seconds then. It's still the battle for P4 raging on then between the 360 car, the 76 car, and they have a bit of a gap over the 36, over the 30 car, 7 seconds, the gap good for Madley over P6, so that's allowing him to focus on the battle for P4 then. Eugenie still trying to hold off the 21 car, but still close as ever, the battle here, 0.5 of a second between himself and Wilk in the 21 Aston Martin, and that's the leader there. That's the number 15 car then, our current leader at the moment, trying to get past these two, and it's going to be very difficult for him to get past these two because these two are battling over position, and neither of them want to give up time because they have their own race to run. They quite frankly don't care about the leader, and the leader doesn't care about them, so it makes it very interesting, kind of awkward in a way, for how does that Porsche get past these two, because it needs to get past and it knows it's quicker than these two, but these two do not want to give that Porsche an inch. They don't want to lose any time to their own battle. They don't want to have to pull off to the side and lose time by letting the Porsche through. They have to do their own thing, and that's going to be extremely annoying and not what Barnett wants to see, as Flack has got another Ginetta down his inside. The Ginettas go side by side then over 15th, 16th and 17th place then. The only difference is that the number 4 car that's just made that overtake has made their pit stop, so a good move for position there then. Again, still see, look how much this Porsche has been held up then. It's been held up an entire half a lap by these two. Nothing that Daniel Barnett can do here. He has to stay behind here for, well, he doesn't have to, he has to make his way through, but he can't just tell them to move out of the way because they will not. Daniel Barnett may have a good run out the chicane and does do indeed. He'll pull to the inside and will be able to get past the 21 this time, but look at the Camaro up ahead, it's defending as well. I think he thought that the Porsche was the Aston Martin. They're both red liveried. The Camaro running a bit deep through the through the penultimate corner may leave him susceptible to the Aston Martin as there's a car off on the dirt on the left-hand side. The Camaro being able to hold on just about then. For now, as there's an Aston Martin that dives to the pits. Then I think that was our once leader, our pole position man diving to pits. Indeed, he's got a very, I know that's someone else with a battered front end. Jack Camaletto, our 61 car, diving to pits, and that's RWB Charger in the 69 Aston Martin with a very unhappy looking front end. Something's obviously happened to him. Curious to see whether or not the 61 car will actually make a valid pit stop this time. Emma Plate up in P13, still gaining those positions, all those 3 positions, because everyone else is making their pit stops and gets a position every time someone else makes a pit stop. The 747 drops away from the 888 now, and that 3-way fight has very much become a 2-way fight. 747 holding off the 333 cars. Gianni Lenz then holding off the Ginetta behind him, just been overtaken by Al, the number 4 Ginetta, who's made their pit stop and got through. It's now under pressure from the number 9 Ginetta, and also the 99 Aston Martin. It's a 3-way fight then for position. I'm sure the number 4 Ginetta, the black car at the front of your picture here, will be able to pull away then. I think the car's a little bit quicker at the moment is this number 4 Aston Martin. He gets a much better line out of the final corner, and there goes the number 9 Ginetta, who dives for pit road. as RWB Flak then in a very brightly hot pink and hot neon green car as well. And I think that's our leader in the pits in the background then. Indeed it is. Barnett has dove for pit road. We're just past the, well, we're well past the halfway point then into the final half an hour of this race. Barnett goes for pit road, and this will be interesting to see where they come out in relation to plate in P13, and that will give us a good indication of where all the others will come out. We knew the gap was about 8 or so seconds between first and second, and we can use that information to find out where everyone else comes out. Rolling is Barnett, so we'll come out comfortably ahead of plate then, who's only going through the penultimate corner now. As we see, the number 15 on your track map has entered or exited the pits then, has the number 15 as Emma Plate comes out of the penultimate corner and into the final corner. The gap there probably around 16 or so seconds between our once leader and Emma Plate then. So interesting to see how many more positions Plate will be able to grab and gain over the others who are yet to stop. Expect Plate to sort of come out in the P5 to P7 area then, I assume, after all those pit stops have been done and dusted. But we are now within half an hour of the race to go. 15 minutes done, 30 to go. Here at Donington, you can see how that sun is setting now. We're almost at 7 p.m. in-game time. A bright orange setting sun. And yeah, look at the shadows here. Extremely long shadows as that BMW runs a little bit wide then. And Dan Liebanks stays out for the time being. He does have a big gap ahead of him. There's an almighty gap between himself and the back of those back markers who are just going out the old hairpin now. Dave Crew, the 99, making his pit stop from P17, will come out in P22. Still P22. Maybe coming out in a fighting position, not too sure. Eugenie holding off then the BMW and the Aston Martin. Those two have swapped position, the 24 and the 21. Behind the 68, but neither of which been able to get past that 68 car at the moment. They've got 28 minutes to do so, and they'll be happy in the knowledge that G Lens, the number 7 car, has to make their pit stop, so they know they'll be fighting over P16 come the end of this. And it actually looks like that Mercedes, Pinpoint and Barros, the 46 and the 74 car, they're coming to join the fight, and there's contact between the two. That sends the 68 spiraling into the wall then. I don't think the 68 realized that the number 1 Mercedes was alongside him and just went to go defensive, assuming that the car wasn't alongside, and that's an unfortunate accident actually between the BMW, sorry, not the Mercedes. I don't think the Camaro Eugenie realized that Barrichello was alongside and went to the left-hand side to defend the chicane, not realizing that the 24 BMW was already there. Bit of a racing incident, and an unfortunate one indeed between those two. Down to P21 is the Camaro with a very unhappy-looking car. Hopefully doesn't have suspension damage. If they don't, then they'll be able to carry on quite happily. Not too much performance damaging is aero damage in GT4 cars. But as long as it's that, and if they do have suspension damage, then it could well be game over for them. They'll have to make a very lengthy pit stop in this one. Andre Moy in the 76 Porsche, the Burger King liveried car. It's actually a car I really quite like, to be honest. I like how they've incorporated the Burger King colors into the cars. Geron Ruling and the 33 car makes their pit stop from P8. They'll gift Barnett, Varley and Plate a position, I'm sure. Indeed it does. As they come ahead, Ruling in the pits, and still in the pits they see them rolling in the background. Then Andre Moy also yet to make their pit stop, along with newcomer up in 10th, G Lens down in 16th, and the entirety of the top 7 yet to make their pit stops at the moment. Still 25 minutes left to go, and only 20 minutes of the pit window left. The pit window being 70 minutes of an 80-minute race, bookended 5 minutes either side. So basically the entire race, bar the first 2 laps and the last 2 laps. So really open-ended in terms of strategy, the 99 getting past the 25 and then trying to put the pressure on the 68, which we know has damage, was in 21st and has lost another place to the number 1 Mercedes. That damage obviously costing him a good amount of time then for that Camaro. Goes a bit wide and there's more contact between the two. These different pairing this time. Dave Crew, the 99, pulls over then carries on. I thought maybe either diving for pit road or being sportsmanlike and letting the 68 pass the 68. I think it's going to have to wait for a gap in the field then and get that spin turn around to the 114, having a little bit of an adventure in the gravel trap. This is not the beach. This is a racetrack. No time for making sandcastles today, as the 747 makes their pit stop from P8 then and is down off the Jackson. Away they go. Very short splash and dash indeed for them. And off they go. Gives Emo plate up to P10 then. I'm still predicting P5 to P7 for the number 71 car. They're currently net 4th at the moment. Made that net 3rd after the 747 makes their stop. There we go. 3rd in the running of those who've made their pit stop, but D Banks and DOR expect them to come out ahead of Clayton, possibly Varley as well. So we're here with our potential leader then, that was D Barnett, and we're now looking at our actual leader at the moment, our current leader, Dean Lee Banks, the number 17 car, not yet to pit. So we are waiting on 8 more cars to make their pit stop. Not too sure about the bottom of the field. Obviously, the timing tower only goes down to 23 cars, and there are, in fact, 39 cars here tonight. So not too sure on whether or not the bottom 3rd of the grid have made their pit stops or not. Not too sure about that one. Unless we scroll down like that. Indeed, and the 69 car has a drive-through penalty. That's extremely unfortunate for them. I'm not sure how they've accomplished that, whether or not they did it through driving, speeding in the pit lane when serving their pit stop, or abusing track limits. On a normal setting, it is 3 track limit abuses and a drive-through penalty. Whether or not that's been changed in the config for this race, I'm not too sure. And in they go for their drive-through penalty. G-Lens in P16 at the moment, still yet to make that mandatory pit stop, and that's going to drop them very far down the field. Indeed, after they make that mandatory pit stop down to sort of P25 era. And E-Plate is catching up to the back of Varley. You see the orange McLaren just ahead of them, who Varley themselves is catching up to newcomer, who's yet to make their pit stop at the moment. Damien Wilk, then the 21 car, the Polish driver, currently in P18, catching up to the back of Barraclough, the 24 car. And this is a battle for P17, but still trying to catch up to that BMW. Can't really do that when you're under pressure from an Aston Martin and a Mercedes right behind you, DOR. Second place driver at the moment, followed by Samuel Kruger, also not elected to the pits. Will Madley go to the pits? No, they will not. What about Badwalski? Not too sure. We'll find out. Going by the looks of the others, they will not pit, and indeed Marco does not. What about Binnersley, also electing not to pit? Last final hope is for newcomer then. Maybe see if they make their pit stops as they come into the penultimate corner now. 16 minutes left on that pit window clock, so hopefully they get it done sooner as not to get called out and be given a drive-through penalty for not taking their mandatory pit stop. Actually, I think the penalty is a bit more harsher than that, because it has to be greater than the time spent in the pits. It could be a stop-go 60, which gets added on at the end, which is really not what you want to see. The 747 under pressure from the 72 car. This battle for 11th place here in the dying stages of this race. Just 21 minutes left to go here. Nate Newcomer getting past a couple of the lapped cars. There's that lapped Alpine then, who's had not particularly the best time of things. The number 36 car, unfortunately, in the Alpine. Currently in P35 at the moment is that Alpine. Yeah, unfortunately not the best of luck or the best of races for them. If we have a look at Dan Lee Banks not pitting this time around, and we're going to go through the selection again, I think. Or we have a look at DOR. Will they make their pit stop this time around? Neatly out, and not this time. It doesn't look like they'll be making theirs. Samuel Kruger, nope, neither. You can tell by the way of the body position of the cars whether or not they'll be making that pit stop or not. Pit road at Donington is extremely close out of the final corner. In fact, that's someone else making their pit stop. No, maybe not actually pulling offline. Indeed, so the top 6 again not making their pit stops. That's okay. Gianni Lenz, we'll see if they make their pit stop or not, as they're trying to put a move on the 67 car there. Actually going to get overtaken by the 24 car. Still, those two go side by side. Bit of grass rubbing then between the 7 and the 24. Just holds on to it for the time being. They fly through this tricky right-hander with that bump on the entry of the corner. Pretty tricky car, especially if you're in a low-down car like a Porsche or a Ginetta. You really can't see through the corner. It's actually beneficial to be in a Camaro or a BMW there, because you're much, much higher with your seating position and you can actually see through the corner. It's much easier to sight. Matt Tarbuck then, P25, closing up to our Audi, and well, here's Audi just puts a couple of wheels in the dirt then, under pressure as well from Flak Crew, from Flak actually, in the number 9, very brightly coloured Ginetta freeway fight over P24. Then 14 minutes left in the pit window, and just under 20 minutes left of this race here at Donington. Number 11 looks for a move through the chicane, not doing this time around. A little bit slow there actually in comparison to the 409. Is the number 11. Does that give a chance to the number 9 car? Not this time. Actually, the number 9 goes to the inside, showed the nose, then had to back out of it at the last moment. Then did well to not hit the back of the 409 car, and they continue neatly on this time around, coming to the final corner. And out of it this time around, a couple of lapped cars in amongst the pack then, and that is the 7th place car of the Porsche there in a P7. That being Daniel Barnett, of course, one of the 4 runners and our potential leader here at the end of the pit stop phases. He's having to get past all this at the moment. It's really not going to be healthy for them. Varley quite a ways back, about 15 or so seconds away from Barnett, and under pressure from Newcomer. Actually, well, Newcomer has a pit stop to make, but there's Plate just behind Newcomer. And Varley, actually Newcomer in the pits then, or maybe Newcomer had a mistake somewhere, because they're not showing up neither on the track map, and well, they're somewhere around there. May have possibly had a bit of an off track, then that gives Plate the opportunity to catch up to Varley. Then the gap 18 seconds between P7 and P8 are net first and second, possibly. Then after the pit stop phase, they're still waiting on the top 6, Newcomer and G-Lens, to make their pit stops. They've got 12 minutes left to do so before pit window closes, and in comes Justin Burley for another stop. This is not mandatory, they've already made it, so maybe a splash and dash. Maybe they've realized that their fuel calculations is wrong. I think that's the 360 car then coming into the pits there. No, it's the 888 car and the 360 as well, so 2 of them. We wait for a while and they all come at once, so the 360 cars made their pit stop and is away possibly as we wait for that to catch up. Barnett does indeed take Binnersley and the 360 car then. We wait for that to update us there. Binnersley in pit road as the camera swings around, indeed rolling away. Philip Varley will take it out, and so will Plate as well in the 71 car. Binnersley will come up behind them, and indeed Newcomer as well, making their pit stop with just 11 minutes to go in the pit window. Wait for Newcomer to swing around. There he is as he gets going and back into the fast lane. He'll come out just ahead of the 747 and the 72 pack, I think, as well. So he'll get plunked straight back into a battle for position. So no respite for any of these guys whatsoever during this race. Danley Banks staying out once again. Will DOR, Madeley, or Badwowski stay out? Only 4, or make that 5 actually, if we include Giovanni Lenz as well. In comes DOR then from second place. Makes their pit stop Anyone else following suit? Justin Madeley not doing so this time, the Welshman staying out. What about Marco Badwarski in the number 30 Mercedes? He looks like he's staying out. Indeed, he is staying out this time around. Just 10 minutes left in the pit window. Here comes our Nets leader then, Daniel Barnett. Where will he come out in relation to DOR? DOR is rolling down pit road. Indeed he is. This is going to be close actually, I think, coming out onto pit road. There's Barnett coming into turn 1. And just in the background, indeed, there is DOR. So this is actually going to be real interesting between Barnett and Banks then. Banks had a bit of a gap over DOR. So this will be interesting to see where they come out. Barnett, the number 15 car, in relation to the number 17 car. That's going to be a real battle for the lead, and it is not over yet. When will they make their pit stops? Will Gianni Lenz then make their pit stop? Coming under pressure from the 24 side by side. Will he go around the outside? Indeed he does. The 24 goes cleanly round the outside, and we'll have the inside line for the penultimate hairpin. Will anyone else follow him through? I'm looking at the 46 then possibly to make him move down the inside. Indeed he does. And it looks like the Gates has fallen in the number 7 car, passed by 2 cars then. May have the inside line for the final corner over the Mercedes. Mercedes swoops around the outside and gets that move done. Surely Lenz will call to pit road. Indeed he does. He's had enough and just wants to get out of it then this time around. Flack, I think, possibly allowing the number 11 car there through. Maybe he's just getting lapped by other cars then in the very brightly liveried number 9. Janetta, Philip Varley then, the 55. Still under pressure from Mo Plate then, the 71 car. And this is a battle for P7. So Mo Plate came out, well, I said 5th to 57th. We've still got a few left to make their pit stops, so that prediction could still come true. Still went on the top 3 who did not make their pit stops that time around to make their said pit stops. The 55 holding on then to P7. This could be a net P5 or P6 then come the end of this. 13 minutes left to go. We've been racing for an hour and 7 minutes here at Donington Park. Thankfully no jumbo jets have landed in the East Midlands airport next to it to cause any sort of downwash on any of the cars. I've heard a couple of stories that has actually happened in some races where they've been racing at the east side or the top side of the circuit, and they've been called out by jets coming into land, and aero washes confused the cars and they've got loose from underneath them. That is probably the best driver excuse I've ever heard in my life. Nonetheless, Dean Banks, number 17, not making their pit stop this time around. Getting into the dying stages, they obviously have to make it at some point in the next 7.5 minutes. It's just a matter of time as to when they do. What about Justin Madeley, the 76 car then, coming through the final corner and out of it, not making their pit stop this time around. We do the cycle once again. Marco Badwarski, the number 30 car, currently holding P3 at the moment, holding so quite well. Expect them to come out around about P8 to P10 in their pit stop. RWB Pinpoint looking for a move past one of the Astons who's exited stage right and has possibly taken a shortcut. Not too sure. Let's see where they rejoin. Frankly, rejoining safely and away from that pack. That could have been quite nasty indeed, actually. Had the that lap down, Aston Martin rejoined in a bit of a tight spot then. RWB Audi fending off the number 11 cars. A bit of contact between the two then sends the Audi into a bit of a half spin, and the BMW runs a couple of wheels in the dirt. Coming under pressure from, well, actually I think that's a lapped car, so that's no worries there. They hold position for now. That's allowed the 99 and the 9 car to catch up to this little battle over P23. Then overall here, 12 minutes to go here at Donington Park. DOR in P6 then, in almost a little bit of no man's land, 4 seconds away from P5 and 8 seconds ahead of P7. So they just have to do traffic management, as is pretty much everyone, whether or not you're lapping or being lapped, trying not to lose time to those who are either lapping you or you are lapping them. Just no matter which situation you are in, the lapping or the being lapped, you just don't want to be losing time here. You don't want to be giving your competitors free time as such. You know, if you lose half a second having to go around the outside of someone to lap them, that's half a second that the person behind you is just gained for free and gets them a little bit closer to you. And then if you make a little bit of a mistake, if you are unfortunate and make a bit of a mistake, or if you get held up even more, then that brings them even closer, exacerbates the issue. Just these little temps. It's real. We're playing with temps here, not seconds. Every tenth counts here. And Andre Moy in P15 holding off the 24 car then for 15th place, closely trailed by Pinpoint and Barros and Wilk as well. A trio behind, and down the inside goes that 24 car. Was that the 24 car? I think that was the 24 car. Gets past the indeed it was Barclay being able to get down the inside of that right-hander then. That move looked a little too easy for my liking there. Not quite sure what happened. Maybe a bit of a mistake then for the Burger King car that's allowed the 24 car through, and maybe even will allow the 46 car to go to the outside into the final corner. 74 has a bit of a sniff there, trying to get past as well, and also the 21 car just in the background ready and waiting, see if they can capitalize on anything that may or may not happen here to come through the final corner. That sun is setting and getting close to being almost set. 7:15 in the evening here. It's a lovely even race at Donington Park. The temperature has dropped all the way from 20 degrees C ambient all the way down to 14 degrees, and that track has dropped another 2 degrees from 16 down to 14. So the conditions again much cooler, and they have most certainly changed from the start of this race. If you were practicing in the hotter conditions, you will not be used to these sort of slidier, colder conditions then. That may throw up a couple of curveballs for some drivers if they're not quite used to the changing conditions that may be in your favor or not in your favor. So still all to play for in the final 8.5 minutes of this session. 3.5 minutes left in that pit window. We'll wait and see on those top three to make their pit stops, whether or not they have. I'm not too sure, as Andrew Moy, the 76, is still trying to defend from the 4 cars behind him, the 46, the 74, the 21. All trying to get past. The cork in the bottle is the 67. Down the inside goes that 74 car. On the 46 Mercedes, I don't think he was able to make a move that time around. No, he did not. And actually, subsequently going to come under pressure from the 21 into the hairpin goes the 21 Aston Martin. We'll see on the ticker whether or not they made that move stick or not. The top 3 still yet to pit. Banks not doing it on lap 45 of this race. And Wilk side by side then with the 74 car has goes around the outside. It's going to be the long way around and not being able to do so this time around. Justin Madeley will not come into the pits this time around. And what about Badwowski coming into the final corner himself? This time getting past one of the Alpines. And he may dive. He does indeed dive to pit road. So finally, one of the top 3 dives to pit road, and I think the other 2 have to do it on this next lap because they won't have enough time in the pit window to do so. To carry on, Barnett, Kruger, DOR will likely get past then. There's an 8-second gap between DOR and Varley, so it'll be interesting to see whether or not Badwowski can get out ahead of Varley or not. We'll see where they are on pit road. Are they even rolling yet? They are still in their pit box, so no, not even rolling yet. And now they go and roll off pit road. Varley will get through. Plates will get through. And Binnersley is a little further in the background, so in between will Badwowski go. Just slotting in behind Plate and Binnersley, then wait for that timing tower on your left-hand side to update for you. Indeed. There you go, Badwowski falling down the order, and there it is. Plate now in my little prediction then, the 5th to 7th, so I can rest easy tonight knowing that I got that semi-correct, and in comes Danley Banks. Has to come on this time. Wouldn't have been able to make another lap around, so our current leader, let's see where he comes out in relation to Barnett and Kruger, will definitely come out along that area, and also Madeley as well, who should be coming down the final corner now. Should be making their pit stop as well. If not, they are going to get a severe penalty, and thankfully they do make their pit stop. Let's have a look at Dan Banks then, where they are. Are they even rolling? They are indeed rolling, so let's have a look at Barnett. Where are they coming down? Well, they're actually really far behind. They're much further behind than I was expecting. I generally thought Banks would be much closer, and I've completely messed that up in terms of timings. I thought Banks would be under pressure from Barnett for sure, but apparently not. Banks has done a superb job by staying out then, and Barnett does get past Madeley, as does Kruger. Will DOR get past Madeley as well? Just sneaking in front of Madeley then. And I'm genuinely surprised at how D Banks has the number 17 car has held off such a formidable lead then in this race. I thought it'd be much closer than it was, as the pit window comes to a close then, as there's 5 minutes left of this session. About 3 or 4 laps left to go here at Donington Park, as it still moves 4 positions here. The number 11 goes off track, trying to defend from the 409 car, the Audi, getting that move done. Indeed it is, and actually trying to make a move for the position on the 99 car, possibly, or the 666 car. No, that is on the 99 car then. He goes side by side into his right-hander. It leads them onto the back straight then. The Audi not able to nip it down the inside this time around. So you can see how they're still valiantly fighting over position as low down as 23rd. Still battles going on, and that's the greatness of the RWB. Well, that's not too great. I'll finish that sentence and start that again in a minute. That's not too great there. The 409 making contact then with the 99 car through the chicane, and that's really unfortunate in the final 5 minutes. And I think the 409 is actually waiting for the 999 car offline, completely offline, so not hindering anyone else there. And I think it's waiting for the 99 car to re-overtake them in a gentleman's gesture, which is good to see. He accepts the fault, and indeed there goes the 99 car just past him. So accepts the fact that he ruined someone else's race and ruins his own in doing so. So it's good sportsmanship that. Yeah, it's good to see that he accepted the blame, which he should have, because that was his fault, quite frankly. Gianni Lenz in P24 then holding off an attack from behind. Mole holding off an attack behind as well. Pinpoint and Barros as well, trying to make a move on the Burger King car. I think it's going to go side by side into the penultimate corner then. Pinpoint down the inside, and will this be Pinpoint from him down the inside? It's neatly done. Will he overshoot it? He does not. That's a good move by the 46 Mercedes to get past the Burger King car. Will the 74 follow suit then? They're battling over P16, 17 and 18 here. All 3 of them taking a different line into the final corner. That's quite weird to see, actually. None of them taking a same line, all of them doing their own thing. I'm sure this battle is going to be continuing for the next 2.5 minutes. That's all we have time for here. Just 2.5 minutes left of this race at Donington Park, as they continue fighting over P17 here. And it looks like Barris is over P16. Looks like Barris is closer to Mole here than Mole is to Pinpoint, and it could be another change of positions to go into the hold hairpin. Not really an overtaking maneuver or overtaking place here, unless you are thoroughly side by side into the old hairpin. We'll use the slipstream to get better drag up the hill, and we'll continue using the slipstream to try and get a good run for the following right-hander. Maybe you can make a move into the chicane. Look how close they are. They are basically inseparable. They are basically touching each other, and a bit of a tighter line for that Aston Martin. Loses a couple of car lengths there, unfortunately, on the exit of the corner. Won't be able to make a move into the chicane this time around. And we'll wait for the call for the final lap, which I'm not sure if that's happened or not. I don't have any audio at the moment, so I won't know if we get that call or not, or when we do. Defending is the Burger King car this time around, having to defend into the final corner, into the penultimate corner, sorry, and then again having to defend this time into the final corner, holding off the 74 car. And have to check where our leader is, as there's only a minute left to go in this race here, whether or not they'll be on the final. Indeed, they will be able to get past this one with a minute left to go, so they'll come on to the penultimate lap now, as it's 0 + 1 lap, I believe. So they'll be able to do a couple more laps here. Hopefully they've filled up the tank for enough. That may catch a few people out at the end here, whether or not they've managed to fill up the tank enough for these races here, to the extended time, whether or not they've made a miscalculation or not. We'll soon see. Mole still trying to hold off Barros then in the 74 Aston Martin over 17th place. They've dropped a little away from pinpoint, and that's allowed him to escape up the road and go challenge for the 15th place on the 24 car. But these two, this is where the real fight is at the moment, P16 and P17. Everyone fighting just as hard for P16 and P17 as they would for the lead here. Points are extremely valuable here, and the more you can get, the better your championship contention, your championship campaign is going to be further down the road. Emo Plate running happily in P7, 4 seconds the gap behind and ahead of them, so they're in a bit of a league of their own, as they may get overtaken by the number 11 car. That number 11 car down in P22 at the moment, so the 71 really not too upset with being unlapped by that car, because it really has no relation to them. So through the final corner for the penultimate time, I think, I don't know if we're going to have one more lap here. Nonetheless, across the start-finish straight goes Danley Banks to finish the race. It was indeed the final lap then. Congrats to Banks and the number 17 car for winning the 80-minute race, the 1 hour 20-minute race at Donington Park. Second place will go to Daniel Barnett. Valiant effort by them, and closely followed by Samuel Kruger in the 360 Audi then. DOR will come across the line in 4th place, followed very closely then by Maisley. Extremely close. The battles at the end then for 4th and 5th. Varley comes across weaving. He's extremely happy with that result for sure. P6 for him. Plates will come across just ahead actually of Badwowski. They go side by side across the line here. Something happened to Plate at the end and just holds off to Badwowski. Binnersley, a good drive for them from P12 to P9 in the end. Coming across the line is the 747, followed by the 72 car. That was your top 11 then. 12th place will go to Jerome Rulin in the 33 car. Across the line, there you go. Newcomer, the 97. Impressive drive for a Camaro, I must say. And also to this Jeanette as well, the number 4. 2 cars that aren't exactly well loved or exactly the fastest cars in the game. Both of them doing a very good job and having very good races themselves. 24, the number 24 comes across in P15, just ahead of Mole, who's still trying to hold off Barros and does so just about at the end. 4 attempts the gap and weaving across the line. That's a bit of a slap to the face for a Barros, that is, to see their competitor weave across the line in front of them, pinpoint or crumb across the line, and there it is. There is the 80 minutes of Donington completed. That was round 3 then of the GT4, British GT4 Championship, hosted by RWB International. And that was quite something indeed. Interesting to see what happened to Jack Camaletto then. At the end of that, our championship leader no longer will be our championship leader, who didn't even finish inside the top 30. Not quite sure what happened to them. DOR second in the championship, finishing in P4, and Binnersley third in the championship, finishing P8. Camaletto finishing 33rd in the end. Really not a great drive for them in their championship contention. And that is it for today, folks. I'm not quite sure if we're going to be getting an end banner or not. We'll wait for that as the server rotates. And that is it for today. Thank you all very much for watching us tonight. We've been RWB International. If you just type in RWB Racing into your chosen browser of choice, whether that be Edge, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, RWB Racing will take you to the website and go through the Discord and all the information you need for all the races held on RWB, whether that is ACC, R Factor, Race Room, or anything in between. It's all there for your enjoyment. There we go. Thank you all very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the racing. We'll see you guys next time.